Have you ever thought that a simple good morning could be the beginning of a turnaround in your life? Me neither. My name is Vinicius, and driving through the streets of this city became my refuge after my dreams were left behind. But everything changed the day Lucia got into my car. She wasn't just another passenger. She was a woman marked by invisible scars, carrying heavy boxes and silences. A 44-year-old psychologist starting from scratch after a relationship that almost destroyed her. During that ride, between traffic lights and timid conversations, I realized that sometimes life places strangers in our path to teach us about courage, hope, and new beginnings. Want to know how a ride-sharing trip became the starting point for a new story? Then subscribe to the channel and embark on this journey with us. Tuesday dawned with that persistent drizzle that washed the city but didn't seem to wash away the melancholy. Bitter coffee, app open, and the same old routine. Hurried faces, uncertain destinations, superficial conversations. Until the notification of a long ride snapped me out of autopilot. Jardins, Boutantin. 45 minutes of traffic, but something told me to accept. The building was one of those old ones, with a facade worn by time and an aura of silent stories. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a woman approaching, fighting the wind with a leather briefcase. Brown hair with silver strands that shone in the lamplight, large glasses that hid a deep gaze, discreet but elegant clothes. She exuded a serenity that contrasted with the city's hustle and bustle. "Good morning, Vinicius," had she asked, her soft voice breaking the silence. "Good morning, Lucia, right?" She smiled slightly and placed 2 cardboard boxes in the back seat. "Sorry for the trouble, it's just the essentials." As I maneuvered the car out of the street, I noticed the label on one of the boxes. Books, psychology. Interesting. The silence settled in, as thick as the fog that hung over the city. The rain drummed on the car roof, creating a melancholic soundtrack. Normally, I would let the silence reign, but there was something about that woman that kept me from following protocol. "Moving?" I asked, breaking the ice. She sighed, as if gathering strength to answer. "Yes, a new beginning. Or at least, an attempt." "New beginnings are always scary," I commented, without thinking. She looked at me in the rearview mirror, a gaze that seemed to read my soul. "You seem to have experience in the matter." "Let's just say life has taught me a few lessons," I replied, looking away at the traffic. We got stuck in a traffic jam on Paulista Avenue. Time seemed to drag on. Suddenly, Lucia broke the silence. "You know, Vinicius, I'm a psychologist. I spent years listening to stories of people who needed to start over. And now, ironically, I'm living my own." I felt a lump in my throat. What happened? She hesitated. "Long story. Let's just say I needed to break free from some ties." "I understand," I replied, though I didn't fully understand. "And you, why do you drive?" she asked, changing the subject. "I was a musician," I replied, my voice choked. "I had a band, dreams. Life happened." "Life always happens," she said, with a sad smile. When we finally reached the destination, the rain had eased. I helped Lucia unload the boxes. Before I left, she handed me a card. "Lucia Mendes, psychologist," I read aloud. "If you ever need someone to listen to your songs," she said, with a sparkle in her eyes. I left Lucia at her new home with the feeling that this ride had only been the prologue to a much bigger story. After that ride, the image of Lucia was etched in my mind. It wasn't just her mature beauty, the intelligence that shone in her eyes. It was the vulnerability, the silent strength of someone starting over. But life is like that. You cross paths with incredible people, and sometimes they disappear like shooting stars. 2 days later, the app pinged with her name. "Lucia Mendes has requested a ride. The same address in Boutantin." I hesitated. Was it a coincidence? Or the universe conspiring? I accepted, my heart beating faster than usual. She was waiting for me at the door, a shy smile lighting up her face. She wore a flowered cotton dress, which contrasted with the seriousness of the previous days. She was carrying a market bag. "Vinicius, so good to see you," she said, with genuine relief in her voice. "I need to go to Liberdade to buy some spices. Want to take me?" "Of course," I replied, opening the car door. "Wanna grab lunch there?" "Perfect," she agreed, with a sparkle in her eyes. On the way, the soft scent of her perfume filled the car. We talked about small things, the unstable weather, the chaotic traffic, the news. But I felt there was a chasm between us, an invisible barrier that kept the conversation from flowing. In Liberdade, amidst the bustle of the streets, Lucia seemed to transform. She tried exotic fruits, haggled over prices, smiled openly. We had lunch in a hidden restaurant, the kind only locals know about. "I love this place," she said, savoring a steaming ramen. "It reminds me of when I lived in Japan." "You lived in Japan?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, during college. It was a magical time," she replied with a nostalgic look. Little by little, Lucia began to open up, revealing details of her life, her passion for psychology, her volunteer work at a shelter, her dream of writing a book. But when I touched on the subject of her relationship, she shut down. "I'd rather not talk about it," she said. Her voice choked. "It still hurts." I respected her silence, but I realized that for us to get truly close, she needed to face her ghosts. That afternoon, Lucia had to go downtown to sort out some bureaucratic issues. I offered to go with her. On the way, we passed a bar with live music. "You know, I used to love to sing," she confessed, with a distant look. "But I gave up." "Why?" I asked. "Life taught me not to have hope," she replied, with bitterness. That night, I received a message from her. "Thanks for today, Vinicius. You made me smile again." I replied with a heart emoji. But the truth was, I was getting more and more involved with Lucia, and that scared me. She was older, more experienced, more complicated. In the following days, our meetings became routine. Lucia called me for everything. To go to the market, to pick up clothes from the laundry, to take the car for repairs. And with each of these moments, I fell a little more in love with her. Until one night, I received a strange call, a deep male voice asking for Lucia. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice trembling. "A friend," the man replied. "Tell her I'm back." I hung up the phone, frozen. Who was that man? And what did he want with Lucia? After a few meetings, the barriers between us began to crumble. Lucia was no longer the mysterious passenger, and I was no longer just the kind driver. We were two wounded souls seeking a safe harbor in the chaos of life. But vulnerability is frightening, and the fear of surrendering was a constant shadow. One night, after a jazz show at a hidden bar in Vila Madalena, Lucia invited me up to her apartment. I hesitated, feeling the weight of responsibility. But the desire to be close to her was stronger. The apartment was a reflection of her soul, cozy, full of books, plants, and objects that told stories, a haven of peace in the midst of the concrete jungle. We sat on the sofa, the silence filled by the soft music coming from the radio. Lucia offered me a cup of chamomile tea. I accepted, needing to calm down. "Thanks for today," she said, breaking the silence. "I loved the show." "Me too," I replied sincerely. "But I feel like you're distant." She sighed, as if carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. "It's just, I'm afraid of getting hurt again," she confessed, her voice choked. "Of trusting someone." "I understand," I replied, holding her hand. "I have my own scars." Lucia looked me in the eyes, a gaze that seemed to strip my soul bare. "You're so young, Vinicius. So much life ahead of you. I don't want to drag you into my problems." "You're not dragging me anywhere," I replied firmly. "I'm here because I want to be, because I like you." I moved closer to her, smelling the soft scent of her hair. Our lips met in a slow, passionate kiss that said more than 1,000 words. That night, our intimacy went beyond the physical. We shared secrets, fears, dreams. Lucia told me about the abusive relationship, about the pain of betrayal, about the struggle to rebuild her life. He manipulated me, humiliated me, made me feel insignificant, she said, her voice trembling. I lost my identity, my joy for life. I'm so sorry, I replied, holding her tightly. You're an amazing woman, Lucia, and you deserve to be happy. I know, she replied with a sad smile, but it's hard to trust again. I'll help you, I replied, kissing her hair. I'll show you that not all men are the same. That night, Lucia gave herself completely to me, and I fell even more in love with her. But I also had my own demons to face. The next day, I received a message from Anna, my ex-girlfriend. We need to talk, it's urgent. What did Anna want, and how would it affect my relationship with Lucia? Gradually, life with Lucia stopped being a film just for us and gained special guest appearances, some welcome, others not so much. These were the supporting characters who entered the scene, bringing with them a baggage of opinions, expectations, and, of course, obstacles. Mr. Geraldo, the doorman, was the first filter, a man of few words, but with an infallible radar for detecting bad intentions. It would stare at me with those half-closed eyes, as if he were x-raying me. One day, as I was helping Lucia unload some boxes, he dropped the line, Miss Lucia deserves a good guy, you know. She's suffered enough in this life. I felt like I was being evaluated for a job, approved or rejected. Mrs. Cedar, the gossipy neighbour, was the opposite. She loved to know everything and didn't hesitate to give her opinion. Vinicius, I'm so glad you're making Lucia smile again. She's been so sad lately. The compliment was an ego boost, but it also made me uncomfortable. It was as if I was being pressured to keep expectations high. The biggest challenge, however, was dealing with Lucia's past. Her ex-husband, even from a distance, still exerted a dark influence over her. Messages, calls, even unexpected visits. It was as if he couldn't accept losing her. On one of those occasions, I witnessed a tense argument between them. Lucia was visibly shaken, and I felt helpless, not knowing how to protect her. To make matters worse, my own family started to question my involvement with Lucia. My mother, always worried, called me for a chat. Son, are you sure about this? She's older. She already has a history. Don't you think you're rushing into things? Her words echoed my own insecurities. Was I ready for such a serious relationship? Could I handle Lucia's emotional baggage? Besides the people, there were my own ghosts. The fear of failing again, of not being good enough, of not being able to make Lucia happy. These thoughts haunted me, preventing me from fully committing. Amidst so many characters and obstacles, it was hard to stay sane. But at the same time, I realized that it was precisely this complexity that made our story so real, so intense, and that to overcome the challenges, we needed to be more united than ever. Living with Lucia transformed me in ways I never imagined. At first, I thought I would just be a shoulder for her to cry on, someone to help her get over the past. But I soon realized that I needed healing too. Lucia was strong, but the scars of the abusive relationship still haunted her. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, frightened by nightmares. I would hold her, whisper that everything was okay, that she was safe. Gradually, she began to trust me more, to open up about her fears and insecurities. In return, she helped me face my own traumas. We talked about my band, about the fear of failure, about the feeling of not being good enough. Lucia taught me to look at the past with compassion, to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made. Together, we created little healing rituals. Walks at sunset, music sessions on the sofa, old movie nights. Every moment was an opportunity for reconstruction, for reframing the pain. The most important thing was realizing that we didn't have to be perfect. It was enough to be willing to grow, to support each other. Lucia went back to seeing patients, giving lectures, writing. Inspired by her, I started playing in small bars, composing new songs. The exchange of support strengthened us. When one faltered, the other was the foundation. And so we overcame our traumas one day at a time, together. The calm we had so carefully built was shattered like glass. The call from Anna, my ex, sounded like thunder on a sunny day. Vincius, Lucia's ex, he's dangerous. He's investigating you both. Thea, cold and paralyzing, washed over me. I told Lucia everything. Her eyes, once so full of life, went dim. I knew this would happen, she murmured, her voice choked. He would never leave me alone. The bomb exploded days later. Lucia was subpoenaed to testify. Her ex-husband, an influential lawyer, was suing her for defamation and slander. It was a dirty maneuver to intimidate her, to make her go back to him. The lawsuit dragged on for weeks. Lucia barely slept, tormented by nightmares. She relived the terror of the abusive relationship, the manipulation, the threats. I felt helpless, wanting to protect her, but not knowing how. I decided to act. I hired a lawyer, a family friend, who agreed to help us. The legal battle was uneven. On one side, us, with truth and justice. On the other, the ex-husband, with money and power. The hearings were hell. His lawyer attacked her with cruel questions, trying to destabilize her. I watched her, my heart in my throat, admiring her strength and courage. In the midst of this turmoil, Lucia received an invitation to speak at a psychology conference. It was a chance to showcase her work, to inspire other women. But she was hesitant. I don't know if I can do it, she said, her voice trembling. I'm so exhausted, so scared. You can do it, Lucia, I replied, holding her hand. You're a warrior, and your story can help many people. She accepted the challenge. She prepared her speech diligently, rehearsing every word. On the day of the presentation, I was in the audience, cheering for her. Lucia took the stage, took a deep breath, and began to speak. She told her story of overcoming, of resilience, of fighting against domestic violence. With every word, the audience was moved. In the end, she received a standing ovation. At that moment, her husband entered the auditorium. Furious, he shouted, "You'll regret this, Lucia. I'll destroy you." Security forcibly removed him, but the threat hung in the air like a dark cloud. I knew the battle was just beginning. The acquittal in the lawsuit was a relief, but the shadow of fear still loomed over us. We knew that Lucia's ex-husband was capable of anything, and paranoia settled into our daily lives. However, we decided not to cower. That terror would not paralyze us. Lucia, inspired by the waves of support she received after her speech, turned her pain into activism. She created an online project to support women victims of domestic violence, offering free legal and psychological guidance. The initiative grew rapidly, gaining media visibility and attracting volunteers from all over the country. I, on the other hand, decided to take my music in a new direction. I stopped playing covers in bars and started composing original songs, inspired by our story of overcoming. The lyrics spoke of love, resilience, and the importance of fighting against oppression. I got a contract to record an EP with my songs. Lucia was my biggest supporter, helping me choose the songs, define the style, and promote the work. The EP launch was a success. The songs played on the radio, gained traction on social media, and I was invited to participate in festivals and TV shows. Gradually, life fell into place. Lucia became a reference in the fight against gender-based violence, and I fulfilled my dream of making a living from music. But the most important thing was that we were together, stronger than ever. We decided to make our union official. We didn't want a big party, but an intimate celebration with the people who really mattered. We chose a country house in the interior, overlooking the mountains. The ceremony was simple, emotional, filled with vows of love and hope. At the altar, holding hands with Lucia, I felt a peace I had never experienced before. I looked into her eyes and saw the strength, courage, and determination that inspired me every day. At that moment, I realized that the wedding was not just a symbol of love, but also an act of resistance. A way of telling the world that, despite everything, love always wins. The party was lively, with music, dancing, and a lot of joy. But the highlight was when I picked up my guitar and sang a song I wrote especially for Lucia. The lyrics told our story, the obstacles we overcame, the love that united us. At the end of the song, Lucia hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, "You saved me, Vinicius. And I love you more than anything." In that instant, I knew we had won. Time passed, and today, when I look back at everything we've been through, I feel a serene pride. Our story, marked by scars and new beginnings, has become an example that life can be surprising when you allow yourself to start over. Lucia blossomed. The support project for women gained strength, became a benchmark, and over time she was invited to conferences, interviews, and even to write a book. I saw firsthand how much she dedicated herself, how many nights she spent answering messages from women seeking a word of comfort or guidance. The sparkle in her eyes when she realized that her pain had become a bridge to healing for so many others was something that moved me every day. My path also changed. Music, which was once a refuge and then almost abandoned, became my voice in the world. My compositions, inspired by our journey, touched hearts and opened doors. I received invitations to festivals, recorded albums, and each performance was a celebration of life and the courage to not give up. Together, we built a home full of affection. We adopted 2 siblings, Anna and Gabriel, who brought even more color and joy to our routine. Their laughter echoing through the house, the Sunday lunches, the nights of stories and songs. All of this makes me believe that, despite all the suffering, life always has new beginnings in store for those who don't give up on their dreams. The past, with its shadows, was left behind. Lucia's ex-husband disappeared from our lives, and peace finally settled in. It wasn't easy, but we learned not to let fear dictate our steps. Today, we are a family that supports each other, that learns together, that celebrates every small victory. Sometimes we sit on the porch at sunset, watching the children play in the yard, and Lucia says to me, "If someone had told me I would be happy again, I wouldn't have believed it." I smile, hold her hand, and reply, "Happiness is stubborn, Lucia. It always finds a way back." Our story isn't perfect, but it's real. And if it has touched your heart, if it has inspired you to believe in new beginnings, know that this is just the beginning. There is a lot of life ahead, for me, for Lucia, and for you who have followed us this far. If you like stories like this, full of truth, emotion, and hope, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel. There's always a new chapter waiting for you.